welcome to another episode of Screen Heroes. I am Ray. I am joined by my two consistently wonderful hosts, Ryan.
Hello.
And Derek.
Hi.
I always try to come up with something new, but you both just really confused when I do that. So.
Well, because we like consistency, apparently.
Yeah.
So, that's what...
How dare you try and ruin everything by not calling us lovely.
You're very lovely.
Well, thank you, but it's a little late.
God. Well, welcome back, everybody.
Yeah, another week, another podcast.
That's right.
Yeah, so tonight's episode was going to be our Justice League rewrite. We had gotten to the point we were all really excited. And then yesterday on Monday, November 12th, Stan Lee passed away. And we thought that we have covered so much of his work in the past that he is worthy of his own episode. So that's what we're doing. We're just going to kind of talk about our favorite Stan Lee stuff. Obviously our favorite characters, our favorite movies of those characters, his cameos, some of the lesser known stuff that he's done, and just how all of that has impacted us. So it's going to be a kind of a personal episode, really just talking about how Stan Lee has affected us. But before that, like always, we have news. Where do you want to start?
Well, we have a few trailers we can talk about, so I guess we can get those out of the way.
Sure.
We have 2 teaser trailers for Toy Story 4. Have you guys watched?
I only saw one of this. I didn't know there's 2 teaser trailers.
So there's the Ring Around the Rosie one,
which is the one I saw.
Okay,
I saw that one.
Then they released one today, which I watched just a little bit ago, with Key and Peele, who apparently are in the movie as a.
They play Ducky and Bunny.
Yes, and
I did see a thumbnail from it.
Yeah, I saw a picture of their characters.
It's pretty cute. The 2 of them are really just bantering. I don't know how scripted that was, to be totally honest.
Yes, Jordan Peele tweeted that they got to improv the entire scene.
Oh, okay, that's what it felt like. And so basically it ends up with them kind of making fun of the To Infinity and Beyond kind of staple, and then Woody and Buzz show up and show them how it's done, and then Key and Peele think it's hilariously stupid. And it was pretty funny. It looks like it takes place at like a fairground, like the Ducky and Bunny are prizes you would win at one of those like water gun games or something like that.
Okay.
But the first teaser was the Ring Around the Rosie with next to no actual audio. They don't really speak till the very end after they all trip over themselves.
And it's really just Forky that talks.
Yeah.
I am Forky.
What? I don't know what that was supposed to be.
I'm really concerned. Oh, not really concerned. I gotta dial back these words here. I feel like they're gonna come up with a bunch of teaser trailers, and they've created characters just for these teaser trailers that aren't going to be in the movie at all. And I'm actually okay with that, because people have wanted to be a part of Toy Story for so long that this is just another way to get them involved.
That's fair. I mean, I'll be disappointed if Key and Peele don't actually end up in the movie, because I love the 2 of them and think that would be fun to see them interact with the other actors. But Ryan, any thoughts about the first teaser at least?
Right.
It's Toy Story. I mean, I don't know. I'm not really that big of a fan compared to you guys. I've seen Toy Story 3 with the governor bear. The governor from Walking Dead as a bear.
That's true. That's exactly what it is.
And I don't really remember much about it except that. And, but from what I understand, it seemed like the whole thing was wrapped up pretty well in the 3rd movie. So everybody thinks it's a little weird that they're doing a 4th.
Yeah, I'm completely. So as somebody who loves the Toy Story films, I think it's probably my favorite IP from Pixar as a whole. I thought they were done too.
Yeah.
And I love Toy Story 3. Like, more than most people do. And so I was kind of glad that that's how it ended. I felt like it was a really solid finale that was emotional and well done and ended on a strong note. Like, it was pretty set. So I don't know why they're doing a fourth one, especially since this is also supposed to be the last one.
They have to make money, Derek. Clearly.
Right.
I get why Tim Allen needs to make money. I don't understand why Tom Hanks does.
Cocaine is expensive.
I mean, Tim Allen...
Not for Tom Hanks, because he gets it for free, but for Tim Allen.
Tim Allen had The Last Man Standing, which was very successful for like 5 or 6 years recently. So he's working.
Revived,
but it's not that Pixar money.
No, it's not Pixar money. It seems like they're now saying this will be the final one, and it just seems odd because you had a perfect trilogy, in my opinion, where each movie was stronger than the one before.
But now they can say this is the last one every time, and everybody will go see
exactly.
it, thinking it might be the last one.
Toy Story 4, the final chapter.
I guess as long as there is comprehensive stories that can be told, go for it. Because I think the issue that I always have with sequels is they're always so unnecessary.
Yeah.
And it seems like there wasn't a story and it was just a cash grab. Now, everything Disney does is a cash grab. As soon as their name's attached to something, it's guaranteed to make a lot of money, including Toy Story. But I have a feeling that Tom Hanks wouldn't keep coming back to the well if it was completely dried up. Like, I think they probably presented him with a really great script, and Tom Hanks, of course, is the linchpin in all of this. We all know Tim Allen will, come like a little dog if he's asked.
It's a little harsh, I think, but...
See, I think that they should have just expanded it into TSU universe, Toy Story universe.
I like that.
Ooh.
And then brought in Small Soldiers and had Toy Story versus Small Soldiers.
That would have been awesome.
And then make that canon, and they can expand out. In reality, there's a lot of toys out there in the world, and they could have done so many things. They still could, I guess, but why do we need 4 following the exact same toys when there's tons of different toys? They could have a whole one based around like He-Man type action figures.
Yeah. I mean, so I understand why they did the 3, because each one accomplished something very different. But I felt like it was, a closed case, right? The first one is the Woody crisis, and then in the second one they get to be best friends, and you introduce Jesse, and then the third one is, well, what happens when a kid grows up? Like, that's a big question mark for these types of toys. So that seemed like a good story to tell. I don't know what they're going to do in this one. That could be any drastically different. But to Ray's point, if Tom Hanks is on board, it can't be a bad sign.
Right.
But, I mean, I guess we'll have to see. So, cute little teasers for the most part. I mean...
Not a lot
much content.
not a lot to go off of.
They did release 2 character posters now. They're basically identical. One's Woody and one's Buzz on the same kind of tannish background, brownish background, whatever color that
Everybody keeps posting that Woody's gonna die. Like, do they know how inanimate objects work? Like, inanimate objects don't die.
But they're not really inanimate objects. They're not. They're living things that just pretend to be inanimate objects. So
Sure.
if you throw Woody, like, look at Toy Story 3, right?
So you throw him into a wood chipper, he doesn't die?
That's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I feel like...
We'll watch it. Watch him get
Now,
thrown
if
into
that
a
happens,
wheelchair.
then I'm going to go see that movie.
Of course you will.
I will be there.
It's gutsy call, Disney.
Yeah. I support this new darker, grittier Zack Snyder
That's
Disney.
what we need. The Snyder cut of Toy Story 4. No, what's interesting though is the Woody poster actually seems kind of sad and depressing and final, but the Buzz one doesn't, because the pose he's in, even with the exact same background, the pose is a little more like superhero-esque.
That's because they know they can get Tim Allen for 100 more movies if they want.
I mean, maybe that's what it is.
They can't afford Tom Hanks for 100 more movies.
Maybe.
So they're going to kill Woody off.
So, all right, so we had those, and then we had probably, I think, the strangest trailer of 2018, which was Detective Pikachu.
Which we all knew was coming. I mean, we've all heard the castings and been like, what the hell kind of casting is that? And all this other stuff. But we really hadn't had anything else other than the casting and like the fact that there's a movie called Detective Pikachu.
Based, loosely based off the video game.
The 3DS game, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And that came out a while ago.
Not that long.
Really?
Yeah, not that long ago. It was kind of like a meta concept in the
Yeah.
community, and then they made a game on it, and now they're making the movie. Ryan Reynolds is voicing Pikachu.
Yes.
So those little Pikapool memes that have been going around for a couple of years, this is as close as I think you're going to get to that. What'd you guys think?
Why does it look so good? There is nothing about it that should make me want to go see it. Like, Ryan Reynolds for me is great in small doses. He's fantastic on his Twitter when he pops up in my feed like once a month. And he's really great as Deadpool. But, I mean, come on, we can only have so much. But I want this. I want this so bad. I'm so happy about it. I don't even know why, and I'm a little mad at myself.
See, I'm all in. I think this looks just looks great. I didn't know what I was expecting it to look like.
I don't think anybody really had expectations. They hadn't released any photos or anything like that, as far as I know, until the trailer dropped.
Right. But you kind of have like these hyper realistic Pokemon. They're furry in some cases. Mr. Mime is awesome. For some reason, he's freaking everybody out. I think he looks great. I think that it looks exactly like what was on the card.
So I
back
guess
in the 90s.
there was like this huge internet pool for Danny DeVito to voice Pikachu.
God.
And instead, people are really happy that Mr. Mime's in it because they apparently think he looks like Danny DeVito. So
Okay, so that makes sense because Jeremy, one of the hosts on the network, commented to me that, so does this mean we're going to get He Evolves to Raichu voiced by DeVito? And I thought it was funny, but I didn't get the full range of that joke, I guess, then, so.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, all right? We were all, I don't know how big of Pokemon fans you guys were when the original movie,
I
when
saw
I
it
remember
in
came
theaters.
out. I saw it in theaters. My brothers were really into Pokemon, and that got me into Pokemon as well, even though I was a little older at the time. And, I didn't really ever anticipate like a more realistic version would come out. It just kind of caught me really off guard. It does look interesting. I don't really know how to feel about it though.
Right?
It looks like something I want to see, kind of, but I feel like it's just like Homeward Bound, except with Pikachu. It's like the typical talking animal movie, except instead of it being a dog or a cat, it's a Pokemon.
So I saw somebody on Twitter today post that it's basically the kid-friendly version of Ted.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
that's a good any movie where something can talk that wouldn't normally talk, and you put Pokemon there. That's basically what it looks like, which is fine. I think that's a good formula, but it is interesting that they're using that IP for this. So we'll see, I guess.
I mean, Pokemon is an incredibly lucrative IP, especially now with, games are moving on to Switch. They've been incredibly successful on the DS line. You've got a couple new movies that are coming out into theaters through Fathom events. Like, it's huge. It's absolutely massive. Pokemon Go, of course, was basically a social phenomenon when it launched.
I mean, it's so huge that they get to create their own new Pokemon. Like, there gets to be Pokemon Go, exclusive Pokemon. You can't get anywhere else. That's pretty huge. Like, there's no precedent for that. So, it's Pokemon.
Well, that was a mobile game, but I mean, there's precedent with that in the games.
Right.
Well, there's generations,
Well, and there's red and blue, which you can only get certain ones on blue unless you trade, and certain ones on red.
But they're all part of a
trade.
generation, right?
Sure.
Red, blue, and yellow were first gen. So.
It's just, this is not Nintendo. It's Niantic. It's a completely different company. So that's what I meant more, that, another company.
Well, so
to do this,
speaking of, there's some interesting stuff there. So apparently the Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee games tie into Pokemon Go.
They do.
And so that Pokemon, the
Melton
has to do with those games. Mm-hmm. So I don't know to what extent yet, but apparently there's some special tie-in there.
That's neat.
Yeah, so they're really, they're doing everything they can to keep Pokemon in everybody's faces.
They're trying to cross-market it across multiple platforms, yeah.
Exactly.
So I'm more interested in the Jigglypuff controversy
controversy.
Yeah, I guess a
Like,
lot
why
of
is he hairy?
people. Yeah, a lot of people thought that it was just this rubbery testicle of a ball thing,
Like
and
Kirby?
It's like Kirby.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
I always assumed that one was a furry Pokemon because of its quaff, for one, and it's called Puff. Jiggly Puff.
Well,
Like
Puff I
just-
thought referred to like
Like the Stay Puffed.
No, what's the food? Cream Puff. Cream Puffs aren't furry.
No, they're not
The Puff
furry.
is like, or Stay Puffed is a good example too. Marshmallows are puffed. It's not. It doesn't have to be furry just because of the word puff.
I kind of assumed that all of the Pokemon kind of matched
Smooth?
what they were based off of in reality. So, like,
What is a Jigglypuff based off?
A
of?
marshmallow.
well, no, wait. So, so like,
We're gonna get
Pikachu-
really deep into this, aren't we?
Pikachu is a mouse, so I assumed he was furry,
Mm-hmm.
right? Charizard is a dragon, so I assumed he would be scaly.
And he is.
Right, Squirtle is. Squirtle's a turtle, right?
Which would also be scaly.
to an extent.
Well, they're
In
reptiles.
parts,
so yeah.
Yeah, but like the arms and legs, they're not scaly. They're smoother,
Have you ever seen a turtle?
Yeah.
Bulbasaur's a frog.
I mean, he's like a plant frog.
Okay.
Yeah,
frog.
he's a plant frog.
I don't know what Jigglypuff was because I always saw the hair, so I assumed that there was some fuzz involved. I can understand comparing Jigglypuff to Kirby though, because there's some design similarities there, and Kirby.
And that's what I always thought of him as smooth, not
Yeah.
furry. And that's not controversy for me. It was weird to see it because I was like, why is he not smooth? But whatever, I don't
Maybe
really
Super
care.
Smash Bros. Ultimate will get an update and we'll have furry Pikachu and Jigglypuff in there to differentiate them.
Or it'll be an alternate skin.
There you go. So that movie's happening. I think it looks really cool.
I think we should review it next year.
Oh, jeez.
Go for it, Ryan.
You're gonna go see it anyway. You might as well talk about it with us.
We should see it together and dress
No.
up. We should
That's not
cosplay as
happening.
Pokemon.
You're only
trainers.
saying that because you already have a costume for it, and I'm not going to buy
I do
anything
too.
related to Pokemon for a costume. I'm sorry.
What if you were Team Rocket?
No.
Okay.
No.
I said okay.
No. I'm
So-
shutting you down
so
before
no-
you even get out of the
so
sentence.
No to okay. So you're saying there's a chance.
There's
Oh,
not a
wow.
chance.
All right. So I think that was it from the trailer department.
Yeah.
I know a new.
There was a new Alita
Alita.
Battle Angel trailer. I haven't watched it yet,
I haven't
but
had
it's
a chance
supposedly
to.
really good.
I'm hesitant to watch it because I really want to see this movie, and I don't know that I want to see any more of it.
But you
before
have to
it
wait
comes
like
out.
6 months before it comes out. 'Cause
It's
not coming
February.
out till- Is it February?
Yeah.
I thought it was April for some
No,
reason.
it comes out on Valentine's Day, if I remember right.
Yes.
Which is a
2
2
months
months
later,
away.
yeah.
Which is fine. I mean, December, that actual weekend is stacked with Aquaman, Bumblebee, and Mortal Engines.
And Mary Poppins comes out.
It wasn't
4 days later.
It wasn't
Yeah.
a trailer, but they did release an Aquaman featurette that
Oh.
shows a bunch of behind-the-scenes interviews and kind of some how they filmed it type stuff. It was like 3.5 minutes long.
I missed
They
that.
all got
It's pretty cool.
updated posters too,
Mm-hmm.
including some characters that we hadn't seen so far, like Willem Dafoe's character.
Yeah, and there was a lot of Willem Dafoe in the
Mm-hmm.
behind-the-scenes featurette thing, and there was a lot of Orm. Is that
Yeah.
his name? Yeah.
Orm.
Cool.
Yeah,
I
there's
didn't
one
see
of
the
them.
featurette.
Yeah,
so I'll look
I
it up.
saw it on Reddit, but I'm sure it's on their DC probably YouTube channel or something. It's pretty.
I went my whole life thinking it was Orin.
Oh yeah.
Orin.
Well, depending on the font, I could definitely
Right?
see that. Yeah.
I get it.
So now that I know that it's Orm, my life is still the same.
And he has a man bun.
Yeah.
Do you have a man bun in your fantasies
No, Patrick Wilson needs to cut that shit off.
All right. So the other piece of news we have is that Pedro Pascal has been cast as the lead in Star Wars: The Mandalorian, which is the new Star Wars
too?
series.
Where do I know him from?
He was in Kingsman 2.
Who was he in Kingsman
He
2?
played like the cowboy-esque guy.
He was
can't,
good.
Can't remember the character's
He's a
name,
fine actor.
but yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing somebody.
I knew I
new.
recognized the name. I was like, I know this guy from somewhere, but I don't know where. But that explains it. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
They're also developing a Rogue One prequel.
Oh right.
Just the
series,
what everybody always
with
said they
Diego
wanted.
Luna. Yeah.
They're just gonna keep going backwards 5 minutes from that.
Eventually, we'll get to the Old Republic. I can't wait. I mean, I'll be dead,
2045.
I'll be dead.
but I'll be watching it from the afterlife.
Oh man, yeah. So a lot of people are really excited to see Cassian back, and it's nothing against the actor or the character. It's more of just like Rogue One was already a prequel 5 minutes before A New
Yeah.
Hope. can we just like move on to some other area? Like,
Era.
Knights of the Old Republic would be great. You know,
There's all these
that'd
other
be
eras
insane.
they could cover.
Tons.
And see, here, this is why I'm kind of excited about The Mandalorian. It's not a different era, but it's a different, like, sect of Star Wars than what
it's
we've ever
both
seen.
though, because there's a 30-year gap that they can cover.
Yeah, but 30 years in the terms of Star Wars universe is really not that much. It's still within, like, 2 movies.
But like Rogue One was like 8 hours earlier.
Sure, you're comparing one movie, but I'm talking that there's,
yeah.
know, there's a lot of space to cover, so to speak, in there.
Waka waka.
So, I mean, I am excited to see a new part of that universe. You know, Rogue One was kind of a new part. There was no Jedi or whatever, but it was still ships fighting and the same story that we already know the ending to, and you know.
Well, that's why, like, The Mandalorian, it may just be 5 years after Return of the Jedi, but we get to see, like, what are the effects of the Empire actually collapsing, and what brought the First Order to power is something we don't know.
See, I don't care about that. I care about seeing more Mandalorian culture. That's what I care about seeing, and that's what we're going to be.
And I'm looking forward to that too. I just meant that
we'll get some clues for it, sure, but I hope
just,
the whole show doesn't like focus on that.
I doubt it.
That would be weird.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't expect
Well, we
it
know
to.
that they're not going to focus solely on Boba Fett. They've
Right.
said that. And I assume that can also be said for the other Mandalorian we know, Sabine. So we're going to get more characters that are Mandalorians. And
Right.
that'll be pretty cool to see. So at least there's that. Mandalorian costumes are some of the most impressive looking and most fun out of the whole
They're super
Star
weathered,
Wars.
which I love because there's there's a lot of costumes in Star Wars. I mean, and a lot of them are weathered, but there's so much armor on this one that you really get to have fun as a costume builder or whatever.
I'm always drawn to the colors that get
That too.
involved. Like, they're all different.
Well,
and
Sabine has some of the most vibrant colors of any
Exactly.
character in Star Wars. So yeah,
her hair, her armor, everything. It's pretty
Super cool.
Yeah.
I'm excited for conventions once the show releases, seeing a bunch of different Mandalorians. I really like the idea of people doing like their own groups of special Mandalorians.
Sabine cosplay is some of my favorite Star Wars cosplay. You know, because I mean, it's nothing against stormtroopers or anything like that. It's just, it's so unique.
No,
Sabine is so different.
Stormtroopers are impressive when they break down how they build their costumes and everything, but seeing 30 of them back to back isn't as impressive anymore as I think.
How they built their costumes? Vacuum former. Here you go. How many do you want? I have an hour.
I purchased this kit and I applied it to my body.
Yeah, exactly.
Some people may... Okay, we're not going to go down this road. But anyway, so both of those shows will be coming to Disney Plus.
Yes.
Which I thought we already knew it was called Disney Plus, but apparently that was breaking news this week. I could have sworn we've already talked about that. That comes out next year. It's Disney's streaming service.
I actually thought they announced it was a different name, like Disney Go or something like that, and we all thought it was stupid. And
I thought it was
making
Disney
fun
Plus,
of-
but the word plus, and then they changed it to the symbol plus.
No, whatever.
But it doesn't. I mean, whatever. That's what it's called.
I actually think, Knights of the Old Republic could be a very interesting show, and
I think for a show, that would be really good. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would love a movie, but I think a show would be better. You get to
show would be
explore
better.
more. You get to really dig into all the different aspects.
like,
Yeah.
picture that, but with like a Game of Thrones-esque.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I could see it. I mean,
like,
it doesn't
like-
need boobs all the time or whatever, but yeah.
You can cut out
It's on Disney Plus,
the
so probably no boobs.
unnecessary adult parts. Like,
Right.
there's no need to have rapes all the time
Right.
in Knights of the Old Republic.
Disney's not going to have that on a
right,
streaming
but I'm
service
just saying,
with their
like, that
name,
is
so.
the
But the
perfect
theme, yeah.
time to have an adult.
And there was a lot of Game of Thrones-esque things happening during that time period.
Yeah.
People being overthrown, the sacking of Coruscant when the when the Sith crashed into the Jedi Temple on not on Korriban. I don't remember what planet it was, but there was a lot of cool stuff that happened where it was like balances of power and things happen. So, that would be really great.
Well,
but
and it's far enough away from the other canon content.
where it won't really affect it.
Exactly.
But, they're still scared to do it. I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's probably because they've got the Old Republic game going on right now, and until that ends, they're probably worried about
I mean, maybe...
affecting things that.
I
mean,
guess-
Star Trek's Picard series will take place around the same time as Star Trek Online.
I think the problem is, since the game came first before the show, if any of their characters resemble like a user's character or something like that, that user could sue or something.
You kind of give up your rights
Yeah?
when you play a game like that. Like, that's their artwork and content.
Okay.
They own all of that.
I'd be more concerned that Disney is making money off the game currently, and they
don't want to hit that.
they don't want to like make everything there legends and then have nothing, because right now they haven't said what that game really is.
Right.
Is it canon, is it not? But if they release a show, it's canon.
Yeah, that's
so
fair.
It either is going to confirm that that's canon or make that legends, and they can do their own thing away from it, and I don't think they want to step on it. And that game isn't going anywhere anytime soon, so...
That makes sense. That does.
Unfortunately.
Well, it's like the third...
It's a good game.
It's like the third or fourth most popular MMO out there, so...
Yeah.
I guess any other news?
We got a teaser for Elseworlds, our first teaser.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys watch that one?
No, it dropped before I was...
Basically, it was Oliver Queen in bed with Iris from The Flash, and she wakes up and he wakes up and he sees a really poorly photoshopped picture on the end table of where they clearly photoshopped Oliver Queen's head onto Grant Gustin's body with Iris. It's like, you have both these actors, why don't you just go take a picture?
And so you had them in costume. Like, there's like phone photos of that.
Yeah, exactly. But like, you could have just had him in whatever. But then she wakes up and makes out with him for a little bit, and she goes, "What is it, Barry Allen?" Dun dun dun. And he's like, yeah. So that was the entire teaser, but it was sufficiently cheesy.
I say that to Derek all the time.
Right when you wake up,
his first and last name anytime we kiss.
I thought you meant you call me Barry Allen.
I mean, she probably has, but we're not going to get into that. I'm the fastest man alive.
In bed.
That's kind of what I was.
Yeah,
but you ruined it.
All right, guys.
I did. That was my goal. So ShazamGate. Anything in ShazamGate?
I mean, just the reshoots are still going on. They had to delay some of them because I guess the kid that's playing Billy Batson is filming a show, like iCarly or some other kids show, whatever kids show he's on.
Oh, okay.
Right now. And so people are like freaking out because it's 2 more months of reshoots or something like that, when really it's not. It's like
they're scheduling stuff, yeah.
And then there's also the thing that we talked about last week, how they're getting rid of, or they're supposedly editing all the Superman references out.
Yeah, I'm curious about that because it doesn't, I mean, like the newspaper thing and all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's all we've seen.
Right. So, I mean, I feel like that stuff still makes sense to keep in, even if you're not going to have Superman in another movie.
We don't know how much reference there was beyond that, though.
We don't, yeah.
So if there was a lot, I mean, Shazam Captain Marvel is a very similar hero to Superman. And so they're probably like, I wonder if you have the same powers as Superman, and like talking about Superman's powers. And, I don't know, I could see him referencing it a lot.
It just seems like a weird thing to like just pretend Superman doesn't exist. That just seems odd.
I'm hoping they don't go that far with it.
Yeah.
I'm really worried about the studio, like, even though it's not Warner Brothers,
what do you mean it's not Warner Brothers?
It's not Warner Brothers. We've talked about this. Another company owns the rights to Captain Marvel. And they're the ones making the movie.
But Warner Brothers and DC Entertainment will still get say on...
Sure, but I don't think they get the majority of the say because they don't really own the property.
I mean, I suppose that's true, but
So they can't do what they did to Justice League, right. That's what I'm saying.
It just seems weird, though, because, like, so Aquaman is going to be a DCEU, a world, whatever. Wonder Woman 1984 is a sequel there. They're still talking about doing a Flash movie. So, like, you can't just pretend that the previous movies didn't happen then, because your plan is to jump off of those.
Right.
Right? So I feel like if you ignore them...
But the Flash movie is just going to be Flashpoint, and then Superman won't exist anymore.
There you go.
That's how you fix that.
The other ShazamGate 18 news, though, is actually our own. We have our own ShazamGate t-shirts now.
Yeah, you can see me wearing it right now. For those of you
listening,
haven't gotten them yet. For those of you listening, I'm wearing it right now. It's wonderful. For those of you watching, sorry I'm lying.
We haven't gotten them yet. They are available, though, on our TeePublic store right now. If you go to heroespodcasts.com and click on the store link, it'll take you right there, and you can get them, and they're super cool, and I'm excited to get ours when they come in the mail. So.
Yeah, Derek's promised to buy me one, so...
We're getting you one. Don't worry about it.
I don't have money to spend on that kind of stuff. But...
Sure. Don't worry about it. We'll get you.
I know you will.
But yeah, so that's it for news, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
I think so too.
You guys still haven't watched Titans, right?
No, sorry.
Titans, is that
When can we talk about that?
When they release a real app for DC Universe.
So you're paying for it right now? You're just not actually watching anything?
Oh,
okay.
Right,
thank goodness.
Why would I be paying for it?
Because you love DC, so I feel like you would just throw money at them.
I don't just write them checks.
I feel like you would, and that's not too crazy. You bought so many comic books you never read.
But I bought them with the intention to read them, and I still own them and could.
But you could get the show with the intention to watch it.
But I don't have a way to watch it. I have a way to read those comic books.
You don't have a phone?
I'm not watching a.
You don't have a Chromecast? You don't have any of these things?
I don't have a Chromecast.
Okay, well, you're the only techie that doesn't have that. No, it's not. I've had one since it launched, and it's great.
Yeah, I had a lot.
Guess what? I can watch Titans.
Good for you. No.
Oh, okay.
We're ranting right now.
Yeah.
Look, I have an Xbox One, a PS4, a Nintendo Switch, an Amazon Fire TV.
Hashtag humble brag.
A 10-inch dick.
Yeah. Keep going.
Make an app.
Keep going. What else you got, Derek?
There's no excuse for them not to have an app that fits on those devices.
I'm really sorry, guys.
Elitist.
Let's go to break.
All right, fine. We'll be right back.
Do you like Star Trek? Because over at Red Shirts and Runabouts, part of the Heroes Podcast Network, we absolutely love Star Trek. Join us every week with me, one of your regular hosts, Gregory Bosco, as we talk about your favorite characters, your favorite movies, your favorite episodes. We even respond to some of your comments on Twitter and Facebook, at least those that are appropriate for us to talk about online, every Friday. Red Shirts and Runabouts. See you next week.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I really hope you enjoyed that break. It was a good one. You let out a really nice after your drink.
Nice drink of water. It's very refreshing.
Was it crisp?
It was crisp, like 7-Up or Sprite. I don't remember which one had the crisp tagline, but
I think it was 7-Up.
Probably. Up yours, 7-Up yours. I remember that tagline.
Great.
I still have the shirt.
Great commercial.
I believe you.
So let's talk about Stan the Man Lee, one of the most prominent figures in comic books who transcended comics and, just kind of became a legend in pop culture. He is, at this point, he's famous for being himself. Of course, he created all these characters, but he has appeared as himself in so many movies, so many TV shows, and he's contributed so much over the years that I feel like there's enough to do 3 or 4 podcasts on him. It could just be a Stan Lee podcast, but we don't have that kind of freedom. So let's talk about some of the characters he created. In the 1960s, he had been working for Timely and Atlas Comics, just different names for Marvel, since 1941. And he had worked with Jack Kirby before. During the 1950s, McCarthyism and the rise of other comics, like Westerns and romances and really uninteresting stuff, kind of killed the superhero. And Stan Lee loved the superhero, so he was bummed about that. He was tired of writing these things. He was thinking about quitting. In the late 1950s, Martin Goodman, who was the kind of owner, editor-in-chief behind Atlas Comics at the time, told him that he needs to create a super team like Julius Schwartz did with the Justice League. So he goes all out and he creates the Fantastic Four. And they took off. They're family. They have problems just like their readers. They get sick, which has never been seen before in comics. They are defeated. They have internal conflict. All this stuff is just very new to comics that wasn't there before. And people loved it. So he kind of went on a roll. He created, after that, Spider-Man and Iron Man and the Hulk and Thor, the Doctor Strange, Daredevil, She-Hulk, quite a few other, Wasp, Ant-Man. They were all created by Stan Lee. What out of those characters kind of stands out as some that maybe you two have connected with over the years?
So it's a little bit harder for me. I've always been more of a DC guy, but because of the MCU, I've really connected with Tony. an Iron Man because I'm a techie, right? I'm a techie at heart. And I know that the original Iron Man was a very different looking and different styled character.
He's always been a tech guy, though.
Right.
He's always been an intelligent, technologically advanced man.
So more recently, I've been interested in Iron Man, and I love the old designs of him, but I think my favorite of all of those characters has to be the Hulk. I grew up on the old TV show with Lou Ferrigno, and I've always kind of loved that character. It's always been, it's of all the Marvel characters, that's probably the one that's been in my life the longest and the most. I'm wearing my Hulk shirt right now. I'm a big fan of that character. I love the dichotomy of somebody who is highly intelligent and wants to be intellectual, but at the same time has this really aggressive side that you can't always control. I related to that, and so I always liked the Hulk.
How about you, Ryan?
It's kind of tough for me too because a lot of the Marvel characters that I kind of grew up with were not Stan Lee necessarily related. I mean, Captain America wasn't. I think it was Jack Kirby more than it was.
Jack Kirby created it.
Stan Lee.
Stan Lee's first comic that he wrote on his own was a Captain America. So.
Well, there you go. Captain America for me was always one of my favorites, which a lot of people hate Captain America. They hate the patriotic, Boy Scout. But I was a Boy Scout, an Eagle Scout, and I had tried to live my life, in a way that's good, and I still try that. I mean, I think Captain America has always been a good, person to follow. Daredevil was not one that I followed a lot early, but I did have somebody very close to me. It was almost like a brother to me that was a huge Daredevil fan, and I kind of looked more into Daredevil because of him. And then when the show came out, or the Ben Affleck movie came out, and I actually really enjoyed the director's cut of that movie, not the release, and that kind of got me more into that character. And then we got the Netflix show, which obviously has been good, and obviously my business has been kind of, had some good things happen because of Daredevil,
Sure.
So yeah, I mean, those are probably the big characters. Doctor Strange is cool, but I haven't really been a big enough fan to really talk much about him. But in the movies, he's great. That's the thing, is all the movies, we're getting those characters, and I'm a fan. I feel like kind of a fake Stan Lee fan because I like a lot of those characters in the movies, but I guess then most people are fake Stan Lee fans by that.
Stan Lee has just permeated so many people's lives, and just like these characters have, both of you grew up and maybe you didn't latch on to Stan Lee's particular characters, but at the same time, you have...
Spider-Man was a big one. I don't know. I mean, you didn't mention that, but we both were, all of us at the table were fans of the movies.
Oh,
yeah.
Tobey Maguire movies.
Spider-Man 2 is still absolutely one of my favorite superhero films. At
Even the
time,
first one was.
Yeah,
really
yeah. The first Spider-Man.
I love Willem Dafoe as Norman Osborn. He plays the psychotic role really well.
And Alfred Molina did an amazing job as Doc Ock. And
Tobey Maguire was great.
Yeah, I like Tobey.
And I liked Thomas Hayden Church in the third one. It's hard to not like.
Oh yeah, Sandman.
Sandman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and Spider-Man was obviously his biggest creation. So, I mean, that's a big one for me. I think those were like some of the first. Did those come out before the X-Men movies?
No.
Okay.
They were about the same time.
Okay, I was going to say, I remember...
X-Men came out in 2000, whereas Spider-Man 1 came out in 2001. So
Okay.
they were being filmed at the same time and just got released different.
So those were some of the first superhero movies I really remember seeing in theaters and attaching to. So, despite me not being a big Spider-Man fan, that movie definitely and not only that, but it paved the way for all the movies that we have now.
Which is how I got connected to him. As a kid, I did read comic books. I read Marvel comic books. And when I was a kid, of course, Stan Lee wasn't writing consistently. He would come on for an issue here and there because he was already a comic legend. And when I was a kid, it was like John Romita Jr. and Alan Moore, and they were writing. Well, I loved the X-Men TV show so much, and I started buying X-Men comics. So the fact that Stan Lee created the first 6 X-Men and the Brotherhood, he did. He created the X-Men with Jack Kirby,
See,
I
X-Men
believe.
from the cartoon was a big part of my childhood. I just didn't
Yeah.
realize that he created the X-Men, or I would have brought that up. But
He
then
did.
also the X-Men cards that they used to sell.
Yeah.
I collected all those things, the little gray ones with the photo, and it had like their power levels or whatever on the back.
I don't know the cards, but I love the cartoon.
Yeah.
Right, the animated one, it was all bright blue and the yellow. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's why...
Still one of the best theme songs.
It's pretty great.
It's really good.
It's instantly recognizable for anybody that grew up in that era. You know what it is immediately.
And I liked X-Men Evolution as well, the cartoon. that
It
came
wasn't
later.
as well written,
That's fair.
but it was, the animation had more detail to it, so it was more visually impressive. They went more into it. Wolverine and the X-Men, it was released on Nickelodeon in 2009. Is a great combination of both. It has the best writing and it has the best animation. So it was even though it was only one season, it was a great show. The X-Men, of course, like all of these characters he created were either allegories for something larger, or they were representatives of something larger. Like the X-Men, of course, it's so obvious now, but at the time he was told that, you can't tackle things like homophobia and racism. So he created the X-Men where people just hate them for no reason. Now, in the broader sense, it doesn't really make any sense, because how can you have people, the same people, adore the Fantastic Four but hate the X-Men when they're basically the same?
Well, I mean, the Fantastic Four weren't born with their powers, right? They get them from an accident.
Yeah.
Right? So it was more understood of these were regular people who got injured on the job kind of thing versus,
Right.
the X-Men, they were born that way, just like how we're all born different. It's actually why I love the X-Men. It is because it was basically Marvel's version of Star Trek.
Yeah.
Right? It was the idea of there are lots of different people, and whereas Star Trek went the route of let's all just be together and be happy, X-Men took a more present, literal look at it.
It was being written during the Civil Rights Movement, and he couldn't put, like, they didn't agree to putting just a bunch of black people at the front. Black people were not being represented. We didn't get Black Panther till about 5 or 6 years later. Luke Cage came about 15 years later. Blade came even later than that. So the Marvel black heroes are not at the forefront. So instead, he took problems that he was seeing, like in the very streets of America, and put them in the comics. There are lynchings and mobs and pitchforks and all the crazy things that he was seeing in the X-Men comics. So I always loved the X-Men because of it. The X-Men, however, were his least successful characters in the 60s. The X-Men were not popular until Chris Claremont took over in the 1970s.
So it's kind of like Green Lantern, where nobody really read it until
Green Arrow, the team up.
The team up, and then when they brought the emotional spectrum
Jeff
in.
Johns, yeah.
Yeah.
Green Lantern's always kind of on the cusp of not quite working out. They just rebooted it again. So
Well, I mean, they've had some successful runs. Green Lantern works best in a team. That's why they expanded and created the Corps itself. But the 70s were a really good time for Green Lantern. In the 70s, they had him team up with Green Arrow, literally because they were both green, and it just ended up working out.
I mean, if you know the characters, then
Yeah.
of course it's going to work out. The personalities will work really well together, and there's just enough for them to butt heads on for it to be fun.
it's just a good thing they wore the same color. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and they all matched, It's all color coordinated, which is important then.
So let's jump ahead quite a bit. We'll go back and talk a bit about some of the stuff he did in the 70s and 80s, but let's jump ahead to the MCU and some of these movies prior.
I think this is where most people would know him from.
Absolutely.
anymore.
Let's talk about those cameos.
Sure.
There are a ton of cameos outside of the MCU. We can talk about those first, like the ones in the Fantastic Four movies, the Deadpool ones, or we could just talk
The
straight
original Incredible
MCU.
Hulk TV show.
The Big Bang Theory.
Mallrats.
Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
Yep.
Oh yeah, right.
Which is actually my favorite Stan Lee cameo, probably, because it was so unexpected.
It was, yeah.
Big Hero 6, he has a cameo because he created those characters.
Is that not technically MCU?
Big Hero 6 is Disney canon. It is.
It's Disney canon.
They never got to jump that bridge. They wanted to, but it just didn't end up working out.
No, I mean, it's hard to pick a favorite because he's had so many, and they're all usually pretty good because they're so condensed, right? And you know they're pretty well thought out to kind of have a fun little punchline and things of that nature. If I had to pick a favorite, it's probably when he's Hugh Hefner in Iron Man 2.
That's Iron Man
Or
1.
is it the first
He's
one?
Larry King in Iron Man 2.
Oh, right, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I love the Hugh Hefner because I think it works perfectly because, I mean, the two guys, you know, they have some physical similarities at those late ages as well, and it just was kind of a funny way to have him in there without him, you know, impacting, you know, the universe. I don't know, what about you guys?
Like I said, I think Teen Titans Go to the Movies.
That is
probably my
legitimately
favorite.
your
If you haven't
favorite?
seen it, he's like in the background while the Teen Titans are in Hollywood trying to get their own movie made. And he's like the janitor, like sweeping, but he keeps like sticking his head up between people. And then when they start to drive away, he takes the camera and says, "I know you guys have been waiting for my cameo." And you know, and then somebody comes up and whispers to him, "Hey, this is a DC movie. This is a DC movie." And then he comes back later and says, "Excelsior! I don't care if this is a DC movie." So yeah, it was really great. Even though it was an animated one, it was still. I thought it was, you know, nobody expected to see a Stan Lee cameo in, let alone any DC movie, but an animated Teen Titans Go movie.
Which I think was a perfect.
Yeah, it's the perfect place for it. So yeah, I love that one.
How about MCU? Any that stand out to you there?
I mean, they've all been pretty good. I mean, a lot of people like the Tony Stank thing. I didn't find that funny. Other than the fact that it was Stan Lee, like, because I love the man, but...
That's only funny to me because if that happened right now, if somebody, you know, announced one of our names really dumbly, like, the other two would not let that one person live it down. So, like, the fact that War Machine just kept saying, "Thank you for that, thank you," like, because that's how real friends interact. Sure. But otherwise, it was one of my least favorite.
I think it was the Winter Soldier one when he was the like janitor for the like Captain America exhibit. Was that Winter Soldier? I think it was.
Oh, yeah.
Or like a security guard. He was like a security guard or whatever. And he's like, "Oh, I'm going to get fired now," or something when the suit goes missing. I really liked that one, partially because I'm a Captain America fan, but then, you know, he was, I don't know, it was a really nice, it didn't stand out to me. If they stand out to me a lot, then it kind of disconnects me from the movie. But that one felt like it was okay. It was still in universe. His acting was good. You know, he got better with his cameos, I think, as time went on. And with certain directors.
Sure.
Because there were some that stood out where the acting was, look, I love Stan, but come on.
So I, of course, loved the Mallrats one. And it was pretty great watching him talk to Brody. And Brody, this entire time, is fixated on superhero junk and what like the Thing and the Hulks and Reed Richards like dicks look like, and Stanley's just trying to have a good day. Brody's ruining it. Like, that was always fun.
The Ultron one was good too. When he's like talking to the war stories. I forgot about that one. That might be my favorite.
And he has the Asgardian.
Yeah, and they're like, "Get into here, Junior," or whatever with the Asgardian.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I like that one.
I also really liked the one in Amazing Spider-Man. He's a librarian and he's got his headphones on, and behind him, Spider-Man is having a fight and destroying the library. And he's just sitting there cleaning, and it was hilarious.
That's good. One of my favorite stories about the cameos is his cameo in Deadpool. So he's basically like the DJ at the strip club, right? Well, the behind the scenes here is that he thought he was going to get to be at the strip club to film the scene, and it turned out that he's in like a sound booth, not really at the strip club, and he was super disappointed about it when he found out. And I just loved it, like at the age of, what would he have been then, like 91, 92?
Yeah, probably.
Right? That like he was really bummed out that he wasn't going to get to hang out at the strip club.
I mean, that's kind of the same in Clerks too. Rosario Dawson was really excited that she gets to be part of the donkey show, and she finds out that she doesn't actually get to be on set during the donkey show.
Right.
Same thing, basically.
Yeah,
same
of course,
thing.
exact same thing.
I thought that was funny because Stanley has that quote, and I'm gonna paraphrase it, I guess, right? But when he was asked at one point about digital comic books and about destroying the print version of comic books, he said that digital's great, but comic books are like boobs. It's great on a screen, but I'd rather hold one in my hand.
Yeah.
And I love that quote. I think it's hilarious. And
So Stan Lee, in the 80s, he actually has on record a lot of very vulgar things that he said about Jack Kirby. He would talk about fucking Jack Kirby's wife all the time. And like in the 70s and 80s, he was not like, granddad of comics, I love you, give me a hard candy. No. This dude was raunchy.
Well, he was like 40 then.
Yeah,
So.
40 and 50, yeah. So, like, if you go back, it's on the Dark Comics web, guys. Like, you really have to search for these because they kind of scrubbed it off of his reputation.
Kind of like the picture with him with the Incredible Hulk covering his junk. Was that She-Hulk or something like that? Yeah.
I missed that one.
Oh, yeah, there's one where he's like laying out on a couch and he's naked.
Completely naked.
And he has like just a comic book, either Hulk or She-Hulk or something
one of them.
Is
covering
this a photo or a drawing?
It's a photo.
Photo.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He is completely nude.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
it's pretty great.
It's out there. You kind of have to search for it to find it, but it's out there.
I mean, people forget that he's human. He was a regular person. He was a comic book writer. He, wasn't a legend for half
good
of his
portion-
life.
portion of his
career.
Right? I mean, before
being a
2000,
legend in your industry, having people look
Yes.
up to you in your industry is much different than the entire world knowing your name. And that really didn't happen until the 2000s started and all those movies started having him in them.
Because then people started wanting to know, well, who is this old guy who keeps showing up in the movies?
Exactly.
And then people found out who he was. And now with the MCU, of course, he's in every single one of them.
And if you're on Facebook, then your Facebook feed is probably, if you're watching this, your
Right.
Facebook feed is probably full of people that are, sharing the loss of him. And 20 years ago, well, maybe a little longer, 5 years ago, that would not have happened. It was, when the first Spider-Man came out and I saw Stan Lee in it, I knew who it was.
Same.
But there was a lot of people that didn't, and you couldn't fault him for it because he wasn't a household name or anything at that point. But at that point, nobody would have really been sharing this kind of status if Facebook had existed. So it's really kind of made people feel more like a community because we all like these movies, right? Almost everybody, whether you're a jock or a nerd or a band geek, whatever the thing, you all like these MCU movies, right? And you all love Stan Lee. Everybody, there's not one person that goes, I really hate the Stan Lee cameos. There probably is one person, but
they just,
nobody talks about that person. Everybody pretty much likes those cameos.
But to your point, I mean, like, I'm a pretty hardcore nerd, and I read comic books, and I watched X-Men and all that type of stuff, and The Incredible Hulk. I knew the name Stan Lee, but I had no idea what the guy looked like in 1998 or anything like that. It was early internet time. Social media wasn't really a thing that existed yet. It wasn't like I was going online to whatever pre-Wikipedia, to find out what this guy looked like. So it wasn't until he started doing the cameos that I was able to put, two and two together and realize that who this was.
I was a huge exception to that. I did reports on him in middle school, in high school and college. So I was pretty familiar with his work and what he did and how he looked, obviously, for a really long time. And when he started popping up in movies, it was, they were blink and you miss it cameos. They weren't very out there in your face. He didn't have the lines.
A little bit. I guess one person can make a difference. Wasn't that the original Spider-Man?
No,
was
that's
that 2?
Spider-Man 3.
Was that 3?
Mm-hmm.
What was
that
it in
was
the first
Spider-Man
one?
3.
I mean, he had a cameo in the original Hulk TV show.
Yeah.
I think he was like
He was a
on
jury.
He was a juror.
Yeah, like that was pretty minor and on a show kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it grew over time because people then wanted to see him.
Right.
Right. We looked forward to it. Everyone wants the cameo, which is why a lot of the articles today were confirmations that he had already filmed his Avengers 4 cameo because people were
And Captain Marvel, I think, probably.
that one comes out sooner, so I kind of assumed he probably film them in order. But
yeah, there's rumors that he filmed a cameo for all 3 movies next year. So I think in 2020 we're going to see the In Loving Memory attached to all 3 movies, but we'll also still get cameos.
what's the third movie?
There's Spider-Man 2, Far From
Spider-Man
Home.
2. Sorry. Thank you. I forgot about that.
So now that we're kind of in the modern and talking about the actual passing, there's been some things on social media that haven't been super
Armie Hammer.
pleasant. I don't know about that. I was talking about the Thanos memes mostly, but then there's a couple other little pet peeve things that have happened.
What
happened
was
with
the Armie Hammer thing?
Okay,
It
so-
showed up on my feed, but...
I didn't hear anything about this.
Armie Hammer expressed his dislike for people sharing photos, selfies, things like that, of them with Stan Lee. He's like, you've essentially made this post all about you and not Stan Lee. And I understand his point, but I still think he's kind of an ass because that one photo is sometimes the only thing people have. That's how people mourn nowadays. You know, when my friend passed away, I posted a picture of me and that friend. So no, I wasn't making it all about myself. I was pointing out the connection this person had on me. So
Right, but I think to his point,
right,
that's a much more personal connection than a waiting in a con line to go sit next. I mean,
he was talking about other celebrities like Robert Downey Jr.
I thought he was talking about fan people.
Like Tom Hardy.
Okay, that's a little bit different.
I mean, Jason Isaacs from Star Trek and obviously
a lot of
things,
people did it.
He posted a photo too. Here's the thing. When somebody you know or have any kind of connection to dies, it impacts you more than a random person you did not previously know existed. Mm-hmm. And when you are a celebrity, let alone on the level that Stan Lee became by the time he died, the way he impacted other people is important. And that was part of his whole mythos, was that you as yourself, as a unique, different person, could do good things, right? That's his whole cameo in Spider-Man, right? That's the point, is that anybody can make a difference, right? So if that impacted anybody who read his words or saw his scenes and in a positive way, that is celebrating his life. It's just celebrating his life from that person's perspective. And that's all that being a human is how you view the world from your perspective. And I think that seeing how many people stood in line 4 hours and spent good amounts of money and even travel in some cases just to stand next to him for a minute because he impacted their lives is significant. It shows what he did for the world.
Sure, I think it just makes me sad because he doesn't look happy in any... I've never seen one of those photos where he looks happy at all.
In the last 3 or 4 years, no. He, we've seen him deteriorate. We've heard the reports coming out, and no,
and it's not their fault that he's unhappy. But
not.
I mean, but if there wasn't a demand for people to take pictures with him, he wouldn't be there.
Exactly.
So there's an argument to be made either way.
I mean, you had the situation where he retired from conventions, but then his wife died, and he came back, and I think that's because it probably would have been horrible for him to sit alone at home rather than at least be out feeling like he's doing something.
His wife only died last year too, and he didn't make it long without her.
No.
His wife and him have a really cute story. If you guys don't know, it was one of those, he saw her across the room kind of things. He pointed at her and said to his friend, "I'm going to marry that woman." And his friend was like, "You're an idiot. You haven't even talked to her." And he immediately goes and talks to her. And within a year, they're married. And then the very next year, he ships out to World War II. And, cool things about World War II, when he was over there, he was kind of a fixer. They had him fixing anything that was just broken, even though he wasn't great with his hands. So he started doodling in his off time, and he was one of 10 guys that got to be a playwright in World War II. One of the other famous gentlemen who got to be a playwright during war was Dr. Seuss. He got to be as well. So cool things there. In the 1970s, he was asked by Martin Goodman to write, on behalf of the president. The president asked him to write a story about the dangers of drugs. So he wrote a story in Spider-Man where a kid was on top of the roof. He was clearly on some hallucinogenic kind of drug and thought he could fly, and he almost died because he was like trying to jump off of a roof. And the comics code at the time, created because of the McCarthyism bullshit back in the 50s, wouldn't publish it. So it became the very first comic published without the Comics Code Authority stamp of approval on it, and it like outsold everything.
Of course
so
it did.
very shortly after, the Comics Code was abolished.
Yeah, that's interesting. That is interesting. So some of the other stuff we were mentioning is social media things. I assume you're talking about like the Thanos stuff.
That's one of the things.
Yeah, I mean, I know after Infinity War, there were a lot of jokes and memes about, Thanos and his plan and the dusting and all of that type of stuff. I do feel like it's kind of in poor taste. I'm not going to go as far as to say that I'm offended by it, but...
There's a lot of people that are like, he would have liked this humor. It's like, you don't fucking know what that he would have liked. You maybe sat next to him for 2 seconds at a con. You don't know anything about the guy.
No.
You know his public persona.
It's very possible that the 70s and 80s raunchy Stan Lee would have thought it was hilarious. There's, like, I don't know. I personally don't like it, and I just expressed that I don't like it, and instead I got flooded with pictures of it happening. So that
the ones
was
that
cool.
people thought were a little more sentimental, which they were a little more sentimental, but it still was, I thought, in poor taste.
No, I mean, because I saw some great comics or cartoons that were made that were really tasteful.
Exactly.
And
I actually think it's very appropriate for comics artists and fan artists to create a comic strip in dedication to Stan Lee. Like, what better way? He dedicated his life to comics, so why can't we have comics dedicated to him?
And it is a common thing, especially in the 21st century, to do that for celebrities when they die. And it can be done in a really nice way. There was one in particular I saw, and I apologize because I don't remember whose it is, where, he's at like the pearly gates kind of thing, right? And God's basically talking to him about, hey, you're pretty great at making universes too. Like, that's kind of cool. Right? Yeah. Because, I mean, he didn't single-handedly make the Marvel Universe, but let's face it, he had a pretty big part in that.
That's the cool thing about Stan Lee. There's no other person in comics who has had as heavy of a hand. Bob Kane and Bill Finger created Batman, and William Marston created Wonder Woman, and they all had their part, and all these people have individual characters they created, that are just as popular, but nobody has created so many like he has. They estimate that he has created over 200, 300 characters that are still being used. Now, of course, the majority of those are C and D list kind of characters that pop up here and there. He did have a wonderful habit of creating a giant monster that was like gray or green or something, and have it just be like an onomatopoeia, like be the name. So that was kind of his thing, but they still use those characters. So you can't really help it.
He had a pretty amazing imagination. And I think to Ryan, to your point earlier about how he didn't necessarily look particularly happy in a lot of the photos, especially towards the end of his life, a lot of that might have to do with the fact that he was no longer able to contribute to Marvel the way he could before. His vision was going. He was aging. Let's not forget, he was 95.
Yeah.
And I'm lucky to say my grandmother is 95 and still doing really well, but that's a rarity. It
is.
When you think about that, means it's 2008. That means in 1998 he was 75 in 1998, right? So that's, people forget that sometimes because he's just in so many movies and he's just around in pop culture. But he wasn't able to participate the way he used to.
Marvel kept him going too. He started there at the age of 17, 18 in 1939. And he didn't leave Marvel completely until 2006. That's huge. That's almost 70 years with one company. Nobody does that. He wasn't made president until 1981. That's when Martin Goodman stepped down and they made him president. He actually hated the job.
That sounds right.
He didn't have creative control as president, and he wanted it, so he stepped down about 2 or 3 days later and became a publisher instead.
There you go.
So he held the president job for a little while.
I know he was the chief creative officer for a time as well, which definitely sounds more like what he would want.
Mm-hmm. In 2001, DC approached him, and they asked him if he were to create their most popular characters, how would they be? How would they look? So there are the Just Imagine books. I think there are 12 issues. Each of them show the origin story for Stan Lee's Batman, Stan Lee's Wonder Woman. And Wonder Woman is an archaeologist of Hispanic descent who gets a staff that imbues her with the powers of the Incan sun god. Batman is a black man whose father was a cop and killed in an ambush, and he ended up getting framed for a crime and, came out of jail on the other side, buffer and smarter, and kind of went after the people that framed him. So really cool. Very cheap to find on Amazon. They're just fun stories. I suggest you pick them up.
Those there define the difference between Marvel and DC, because Marvel's at least their most successful characters, are all relatively flawed human beings.
They're all men trying to be gods, whereas in DC it's all gods trying to be men.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. That's exactly right. Because Diana, she is, a god, essentially.
She doesn't need the powers of God. She is one.
Right.
Yeah.
Superman is essentially, he's a god.
Yeah.
Even Batman
is essentially a god.
So I think that right there completely defines the difference between the two. And maybe it's because of Stan Lee.
It's very possible. DC approached him because they were interested in what he could do for them. And of course, you're not going to have Stan Lee create brand new characters. You're going to have him kind of reimagine him. So I actually thought that you two would really enjoy that. Maybe I'll pick them up and let you guys read it because they're just fun.
No, that's super cool. I did not know that.
Yep.
I knew about the Amalgamation series where they had crossovers between Marvel and DC, and those are super interesting, by the way.
The Amalgam comics.
The Amalgam,
fun.
thank you. Yeah. It's a fun...
Any time where Batman beats the Hulk in a fight is not that fun, in my opinion.
It's Superman who beat Hulk.
No, Batman beat the Hulk by asphyxiating him. He threw a gas grenade and then kicked him in the stomach, which made the Hulk go... and
That's not fair.
Yeah, it's...
How much prep time did Batman have?
Come on, guys. This is not how any of this works.
So, some other small stuff about Stan Lee had a sci-fi reality show for one
I remember
season.
It. The one where he went to
seasons.
go find incredible people or whatever.
Yeah. People
like
created...
the stretchy guy, they're the contortionist, was also his co-host or whatever.
It was kind of like a Ripley's.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of
But he put them through superhero tests.
Yeah.
People had to create their own characters, and at the end... They whittled them down one by one in
Okay,
episode.
you're talking about a different show than I am. There was one that was like Stan Lee's Real Life Heroes, where he went around the world, and it wasn't him. He had a host.
Show.
He had a host. This was like a contortionist guy that went around and found the people, but Stan Lee was in every episode. Then this is the one, where he created
the
art,
competition.
which I actually watched that one too.
Yeah.
I watched them both.
Okay, I didn't know about the one Ray's talking about. I knew about the one you're talking about.
No, I had forgotten about that one, but I do now that you brought it up.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Well,
I do remember
kind of extraordinary people. They're the people that battle on the American Gladiators kinds of thing. They're not the gladiators; they're the contestants. And these kind of people came on. They created their own heroes or villains, and Stan Lee put them through tests, and it was just fun to watch. It was a little ridiculous.
It was very ridiculous, if I remember.
Yeah, not one of my favorite reality shows, just the way they did it. But it was fun to see Stan Lee do other stuff.
Fair enough. Stan
Lee also created some YA graphic novels called Zodiac. They are pretty good to watch. So, I'm really talking about the time where he left DC, or where he left Marvel, but he wasn't in the cameos yet. Mm-hmm. So that kind of period where he was just working on his own. He did the Stan Lee production, Stan Lee Media, and
Stan Lee's Kamikaze.
Mm-hmm. He had a hand in the Stripperella show starring Pamela Anderson, the cartoon. He was a consultant on there, so he wasn't a full-time writer. But
I do wonder if they're going to continue that con.
I think so.
Probably in his memory. I bet next year's will be intense.
Pretty intense, yeah.
it would be a shame if they didn't at least try to carry it on,
He
right?
still has 2 daughters that are very heavy-handed in his business. They took care of him. His managers loved him very much. He was a huge supporter of cosplay. You know, he helped kind of make Ivy Doom Kitty what she is now, how big she is. The 2 of them went on tour at every con that Stan Lee was at for a while. She was at. So
That's pretty cool.
he was a big fan of cosplay. He loved what we did with his characters.
Awesome.
Yeah. So we are a little bit over time tonight just because there's a lot to talk about. Let us know what your favorite Stan Lee moments were, what about his career stood out to you, what's your favorite cameo, what's your favorite character, and just, you know, something little like how he affected you personally, because if you're a geek, he probably did.
Yeah, if you hit us up at Screen Heroes Pod on Twitter and tell us your stories there, or comment on our posts on heroespodcast.com or at Heroes Podcasts on Facebook, maybe we'll mention some of them, you know, maybe next week or something like that on the show.
Also, we have 2 more weeks before the Screen Heroes Awards. It's our 3rd annual. Doing it a little different this year. It'll be a 2-hour episode. Join us and 5 other hosts from the Screen Heroes or Heroes podcast
Universe.
Yeah, the Screen Heroes universe.
The HPNU.
The lesser players. No, I'm sorry. They don't listen to the show, so it's fine. I can make fun of them.
That's true. I agree.
Yeah, that's going to be a really fun time. We're doing voting almost every day up on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, so you can go find all that out there.
It's your chance to participate in the episode. We'll also be, you know, discussing things with our Twitch viewers on that evening. So, you know, come with a lot of opinions.
And we're trying to work out maybe a giveaway or 2 for that. We don't have anything set in stone yet, so, you know, keep an eye out for that during the Screen Heroes Awards. That could be fun.
Sure.
Ryan, no, next week, I guess, I'm sorry, real quick. Next week we are
reviewing the Crimes of Grindelwald. Check that out this
Ryan's
weekend.
eyes just got real big.
Guess I got to see that this weekend.
We
Yeah.
talked about this.
Oh, yeah.
Good job, Ryan.
You knew about it. I don't just throw the stuff in your lap anymore. I used to. Ryan, where can we find you on social media?
Buster Props. Everywhere.
Should we put the @ symbol or just search
I mean, you can.
Okay.
I mean, either way, it'll show up, I'm sure.
Derek?
I am the Star Trek Dude on Twitter. You can also find me on Red Shirts and Runabouts, the HPN's Star Trek podcast.
And I am Siren Ray on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can check me out there. If you actually want to talk to me, Twitter's the best way to do it. I don't like messages or DMs. Don't do that.
Don't forget, you can chat with us live Tuesday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 Central at twitch.tv/heroespodcasts. We always record the show live. It was kind of quiet tonight. I know we kind of changed course last minute for this topic, but join us next week if you can see Fantastic Beasts 2.
Absolutely. We'll catch you later, guys. Bye.